of all of those different practices, the dark room meditation is the most potent transformational. Plant medicine, layered on top, provides a gateway to go experience on a short-term, uncontrolled basis the reality of the underworld, so you know that they're real and it's not faith-based. And then the dark room and deep meditation teaches you to access those states under control and full consciousness. Because in the dark, after 3 days, your brain starts to produce DMT endogenously, and it naturally opens the pineal gland and those gateways without any class 4 scheduled drugs, without any vomiting, without any of the rest of it, in a totally natural way.
Ian Gardner is a serial entrepreneur, urban monk, and founder of Akraya, a company building darkroom retreat centers around the globe. In this conversation, Ian reveals why the Buddhists, Sufis, and Christians kept this practice hidden for thousands of years, and why humanity is finally ready to receive it.
In the past, historically, it was darker times, and the secret teachings and the wisdom and the light and the truth was kept in the monasteries, where it was safeguarded and protected and shielded because it was such dark times. And those monastics were the servants of the light, the keepers of the light. They held those traditions and they passed it down mouth to ear and sometimes in written form. But where we are now is all that wisdom from the monastery, all those secrets are coming from the sky to the street, from the monastery to the marketplace.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Ian, what's up, brother?
Just got over bronchitis after 2 weeks in the deeps of Mustang with the monks, the Buddhist and Bun monks, way out at 13,000 feet. So I'm just back in fighting action.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely curious to learn a little bit more about that trip in this conversation. But, I want to just start off by just sharing a little bit about my admiration for you. And then I want you to share a little bit about your background. I think there's a lot of people out there who are getting on a consciousness journey, waking up, and they're trying to figure out, okay, like, how do I do this with genuine intent and like a level of seriousness, and also thrive in the world, like build companies, do cool stuff. And I honestly don't know of that many people who are holding both. And you're one of the people that I've identified who, I want to talk about your background, but like, you've been really serious on your path, and you're also out there building companies and have had a lot of success. And, I think it's awesome, man. I think it's incredible. And I think we need more people that are, devout householders, if you will, out there doing the thing, showing people that this way of living can be done.
Yeah. I sort of have come to call myself an urban monk because for a long time I wanted to be a monk. I went to India in 2001 to the Mahakumbh Mela in Allahabad with all the Hindus to go look for Babaji, and was going to go be a sadhu. But I think early in my career, when I started having some success, I observed that whenever I had some material corporate success, the excitement and the energy and the happiness and the joy would last for a couple of days. And then I'd start feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I got to work harder. That maybe that wasn't real, or I was lucky, or, they didn't know what they were doing when they promoted me, or the rest of it. And then, that sort of translated into the hot girlfriend, or the motorcycles, or the cars, or the right apartment, or the right stamps in my passport, or the right graduate degrees, or what have you. And eventually I was like, I just got this intuitive nudge. I was like, I need to learn to meditate and start doing yoga. And it was when I was in business school at UCLA. And so I started doing Bikram yoga super intensely, 5 or 6 days a week, 2 a day, vegan. I was down to I'm 195 now, is down to 150 pounds. And then I took I got initiated into Maharishi's transcendental meditation. And the first time I sat down and did that mantra, it was like, and I was like, oh, I just come home. This is what
Wow.
it is. That's like, it felt so good. I sat for 20 minutes. And over the course of that was the first step on the journey. And over the course of that journey, I realized that the happiness that I was looking for wasn't anywhere out here. It was in here. And the deeper I went in here, the happier I got out here. And so I kind of got addicted with it and eventually evolved my world view where, for me personally, my metric for how successful I feel my life has been, I want to be successful in a couple different domains. I want to be successful professionally and financially. I want to be successful physically and taking care of myself. I want to be successful spiritually in my spiritual achievement and understanding. And I want to be successful as a family man, as a father. And so I systematically went through each of those different dimensions and very deliberately undertook efforts and work to further myself in each of those different directions to the point where I felt like I had a level of achievement and a quality of life and success that made me feel good and made me feel like I'd achieved what I wanted. And so learning how to be a householder and how to do very deep, often very challenging, very disruptive inner work was part of that journey.
I love it, man. And I think I distinctly remember listening to a conversation to you where, this sounded like it might have been before you started studying Mudra Ashram, but you were like, okay, like I want to just like stay up here with the masters in this realm and meditate all day. And they were like, no, this isn't what your Dharma is. Like, you got to go out and do stuff. And I'd love for you to share more about that.
Yeah, I had rented a beach. I had rented a cottage by the beach in Ocean Beach in San Diego. I was working on a path called Ekankar, which teaches a modality called soul travel, where it's a specific spiritual technique where you focus the attention in the third eye, and then you move it up through the crown chakra and up into the spiritual worlds in full awareness. And then you can go to different temples and work with different teachers within that hierarchy in those spiritual worlds. And so I was managing this little cafe during the day because it was pretty low friction, low brain power. And then I was meditating 6 or 8 hours a day, talking and taking teaching from the masters within this hierarchy and writing books about it. And I had a 6-book deal with Deepak Chopra's publisher, and we put one out and had the other ones in draft and working through it. And I had gotten within that path and tradition as far as I could go. I had hit the ceiling. And so, but I still felt like there was more for me to do. And so I went to the hierarchy that I was working with, and I said, "Look, I want to go. I want to go be a monk. Like, I want to just completely dedicate and focus myself to this." And they said, "No, no, you've done that. You don't get to do that in this life. That's the old model. The new model, with where the collective reality is, and so the cycles of time, is that." In the past, historically, it was darker times, and the secret teachings and the wisdom and the light and the truth was kept in the monasteries where it was safeguarded and protected and shielded because it was such dark times. And though those monastics were the servants of the light, the keepers of the light, they held those traditions, and they passed it down mouth to ear and sometimes in written form. But where we are now is all that wisdom from the monastery, all those secrets are coming from the sky to the street, from the monastery to the marketplace. And where we are in this cycle of time, the journey that we are in collectively is incorporating and embodying those esoteric principles into everyday life and living. And so their response to me was, your job is to go and live that as a truth, as an example, and help teach other professional Westerners who have your type of white guy, MBA, tech bro, finance dude background.
I can relate.
To like take all of that. I'm going to make as much money as I can and get the hottest wife that I can and the biggest house that I can and the fastest car that I can, and translate that into an embodied spiritual living for modern times. And they said there are 2 teachers left on the planet that can help you with that journey. um, go find one that can teach you about this very specific esoteric thing. And so I started searching, and I found Mudra Ashram in Los Angeles, and reached out and explained what was going on, and then started on that path. So that was sort of how that journey happened.
That's amazing. And I do want to highlight Mudra Ashram, which I actually been studying it, partly inspired by you. What appeals to you so much about that path? And I want to just give it a quick plug for anybody who might be curious about it.
Well, the paths. I think we call down what we need collectively for the next stage of our evolution collectively, right? So, in the dark ages, and even earlier than that, you had sort of Christianity that came in, and with the rules of conduct kind of provided a civilizing effect for some of the chaos of those early times. And so now we're at a stage where we're ready to move beyond that, and we're calling in yoga, meditation, plant medicine, these Eastern modalities. But each of those paths are closed in the sense that if you're a student of Buddhism, if you're a student of Ekankar, if you're a student of Sufism or Islam or Judaism, or pick your ism, if you have the inner awareness opened on that path, you can only see the tracks and landmarks that are contained within that path. So it's like, if you think about the journey to liberation as climbing up the mountain, each path has its own ladder going up the mountain. And if you're on an ism ladder, you can't see any of the other ladders that are to your left or right because it's a closed path. You're not initiated. If you're initiated on the ism path, you're not initiated on the other ism path, and you can't look in between. But the reality is that there's 188 paths up the mountain that are active. And the unique thing about Mudra Ashram, of all the ones that I've studied and evaluated, is it's an open path. And what that means is that as you do the practices and techniques and you start to unfold and develop the awareness and go up, you can see all of the different paths up the mountain. And Mudra Ashram culminates in the final stages called multiplane mastery, where you develop a form on different paths so that you can minister and help people and bestow the light on different paths. So you could be a Mudra Ashram high initiate, and you could administer in the inner worlds to Muslims, to Christians, to Jews, to Sufis, to Zen Buddhists, to Tibetan Buddhists, to Vajrayana Buddhists, to Bun students, to Sant Mat students, to Ekankar students. And so in a world where we are divided based on which path we're on, and which create blinders and view everybody else as enemies, right? If I'm Jewish, I'm the chosen son of God and everybody else isn't. If I'm Christian, there's one God and only one God and everybody else isn't, and pick your ism. This is a path that can unify and integrate all of the other paths in an experiential way, where you're not just taking it on faith, but you can actually see the other paths and landmarks going up the mountain and see where people are and provide service to them to help liberate them and move them forward on the path. And I think, that is something that makes this path unique among all others. And I think also why it's been called forth in this time and place, particularly in California, to help integrate and connect all the other paths and reduce some of that friction as we all try to climb the mountain together.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that was very compelling to me as I learned about it as well, where it was like, wow, like, the highest rung of TM is not necessarily the same as the highest rung of Ren Shui, of these other things. It's like different roads, right? And the notion that all potentialities would be accessible to you, um, from a single unified meta path, if you will, like that was like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. I want to dig in here a little bit.
Yeah, and it also has the most comprehensive map of the continuum consciousness of any path. So it's not like Christianity where you go and it's all faith based, right? You're just praying and hoping, and maybe you have some kind of experience. This is completely experiential, so you can individually validate that you're making progress at each point. So you do the technique, you move to the next point on the ladder. That point has these characteristics. You experience it personally, and you go, "Oh, okay, that's for real. I experienced it." And within the continuum of consciousness, which are strung like pearls on a string, within those are contained every state and stage conceivable and experienceable by a human in a physical body. And so as you work your way through it, you can experience the gamut of human realities that an embodied person can have and understand them in a very deep and fundamental way, which allows you, when you're working in the world at large, to tune into somebody and go, oh, okay, that person is right here. This is their worldview. They think this because this is the reality of the place that they're in. And I can't expect them to be up here or down here because this is where they are. And it enables you to meet people where they are on the journey and have much more effective and compassionate communication.
So let's switch gears to what you're up to now with dark rooms. And maybe to frame this up, but you mentioned that right now is like kind of a shift in what's happening in the cycle on this planet, and that there's new technologies that are being brought into our awareness. I guess my question would be, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that cycle, and then how did these dark rooms first get on your radar?
Yeah, well, most of the great traditions have a map of cycles of time, right? And the one that I think is probably the closest is the Hindu model of the yugas. The Buddhists have a model of time also, but in my experience exploring that, I find it to be a little bit elongated, and I think the Buddhists or the Hindus are probably a little closer to what's going on. But in those models, you have in the beginning of a cycle of time, you start sort of basically at the top of the ladder, and then the cycles take you down all the way to the bottom of the ladder, which would be like the Dark Ages, and then you cycle back up as you learn things. And the whole point is designed to take a soul through that journey of all different human experience, so that you season the soul and it gets experience and it has creative expression and all the rest of that. And so we've sort of come all the way down, and now we're starting to come back up. And the culmination of that at the end of the last cycle is the transition collectively into an astral age. So right now we're in a physical age because we're in a world of duality. We have physical bodies, we live on a physical planet. But the astral realm is the next realm above this one, and it's non-dual, where literally you can think something or imagine it and it creates it as a reality, which is a very powerful capability to have. And if soul was not seasoned and matured, that ability could be abused and be quite destructive. Just like you don't give a teenager an F1 race car, you give them your old beat up Tahoe because you know that they're going to go bang around and drive over curbs and run into trees and do stupid shit. And so the whole point of this arc of this journey is for soul to get seasoned and gather wisdom, so that by the end, when it's done, you give them the F1 car and they go do race laps. They don't go wreck the thing. And so collectively, we gather experience and knowledge, and we move through that journey together. And so now, as we're starting to come back up and head back up towards the astral age, then we're looking collectively for more sophisticated tools, deeper understanding, greater wisdom, greater awareness, greater facility, and all the rest of that, which is why you see in the West, we're calling in, yoga and plant medicine and meditation and all the rest of that. And of all of those different practices, the darkroom meditation is the most potent transformationally. So, like if you go do yoga, you can do Bikram or you can do vinyasa or whatever you have, and it'll clear out the body and it'll restructure things and it'll help you get peaceful. And yoga was designed to prepare the body for meditation. So then you move into meditation, and that helps you settle the mind and reduce the thoughts and learn to discipline your focus. But unless you are to have an advanced practice, it doesn't necessarily enable you to realize those higher states, which are in the non-dual inner worlds. Plant medicine, layered on top, provides a gateway to go experience on a short-term, uncontrolled basis the reality of the inner world, so you know that they're real and it's not faith-based. And then the dark room and deep meditation teaches you to access those states under control and full consciousness. Because in the dark, after 3 days, your brain starts to produce DMT endogenously, and it naturally opens the pineal gland in those gateways without any class 4 scheduled drugs, without any vomiting, without any of the rest of it, in a totally natural way. If you're not prepared for that, it can be really weird and scary. But if you are prepared for that, it can rapidly accelerate your development, which is why the Buddhists and the Sufis and the Christians have all kept it hidden and secret as part of the esoteric teachings for the last couple thousand years. And so now, as we swing through the bottom of the curve and we're calling in these more advanced techniques to integrate that wisdom from the sky down into the street, from the monastery to the marketplace, this is one of those core practices that is my purpose and journey, is to make that modality available to Westerners in a safe way so they can receive the benefits without the risks of the downside of doing it properly.
What can someone expect who's maybe never heard of a darkroom retreat before? Like, what is the actual experience like?
Well, if you've never done any meditation or yoga or anything, you shouldn't go do a dark retreat. It's not a good idea. But if you have a little bit of experience, either with yoga or meditation or what have you, and if you've done work in your subconscious, like if you've done Byron Katie's work, or pick your modality of trying to understand how the furniture is in the basement and rearranging it and cleaning it out, then this is a modality that can help for that. And what happens is, so usually you want to start with like 5 days. So you go in on day one and you just relax, maybe get a massage, do some yoga, turn off all your digital devices, maybe read some spiritual material, go for a walk in the woods, just sit quietly. And then after dinner on day one, you turn off all the lights. So the room is completely dark and there's no light. You can't cheat. There's no light. There's not like pinholes. It's black, black, black. Like when you open your eyes and close your eyes, there's no difference. You can't tell any difference. And so you go to sleep that first night. And then generally for the first 48 hours, people just sleep because 70% of the stuff that goes on in our brain is through our visual cortex, stuff that we see. And when you turn that, and that stuff, the input from your visual cortex overrides a lot of the other balancing functions in the body. So visual cortex stimulation creates cortisol, it creates stress, it keeps us going, it keeps us amped up, and that prevents your body from sort of healing. That's why people in urban environments get stressed out and sick a lot. And so the first 40 hours, you basically sleep. And most of your biomarkers reset, your testosterone, estrogen, melatonin, all your biochemistry resets. And this is also when a lot of people see the starts of the beginning of spontaneous healing, because in the absence of external stimulation, your body does what it's designed to do, which is to heal itself. Like when you're sick and your doctor says, just stay in bed and sleep. That's why he says that, or she says that, is because that's how your body heals. So then you go through sort of 2 days of sort of mostly sleeping. And then on the third day, you're kind of out of that. Your body's reset, you're energized, you're stabilized, you're balanced. And day 3 to day 4 is when your brain starts to produce DMT. And you can do it one of two ways. You can just passively sit there and follow the breath and observe what the phenomenon that arises. This is just called, passive observing. Or if you have a dedicated meditation practice, you can do your practice either on your own or with the support of your teacher or one of the teachers that you find through our platform. And so generally, as part of that days 3 and 4, you will start to experience light phenomenon and images, which is your awareness moving up out of the body and through the inner senses, experiencing things that are going on in the spiritual worlds. And it could be patterns of light. It could be like sort of kaleidoscope colors. It could be seeing your past lives. It could be viewing teachers. It could be seeing the Kundalini serpent coming up the column of light in the spine. It could be lots of different things. And some people also develop special spiritual powers called siddhis, like the ability to see into your body so you can see like your muscles, your tendons, your bones, your blood vessels and cells and things like that. So it's highly individualistic depending on sort of how you're wired and what your Dharma is and what you're working on. And so the day 3, 4, you stay in the dark. And then in day 5, you generally turn on the lights and come out in the morning, have a cup of tea, listen to the sound of the birds, the wind in the trees, spend some time in nature. And then it takes about 24 hours to come back into your body and for that aperture of your senses, which has gotten so broad, to narrow back down so that you can deal with normal physical life. Like on my last one, I did 5 days. I came out in the morning and I was like, I'm a badass. I don't know how to meditate. I'm going to drive down the hill and get a cup of coffee. Oh no, I couldn't even turn the car on. I had to go back up to the cabin, put my keys away, ask them to bring me some tea, and to literally just sit there on the porch for 5 or 6 hours while reality adjusts.
Let's talk about bringing your whole self to work. If you're like many executives, including myself at one point, you might be living a double life. You have your personal career, and then you have your personal growth journey. Conscious Talent is changing that as the world's first executive talent firm specializing in connecting leaders and companies who embrace inner work. Imagine finding job opportunities where your contemplative practice, latest retreat experience, and commitment to your personal evolution are seen as strengths, not secrets. What if you actually felt like your career supported this aspect of your life versus competed with it? Conscious Talent is building a community of leaders and companies who are committed to both combining professional excellence with personal transformation. If you're ready to merge your two worlds with a fully aligned career, join the movement at conscioustalent.com. Here you can sign up for our talent collective to stay on top of future opportunities or find your next transformative team member. Wow, that's incredible. I didn't realize, I mean, I knew that, I feel like I watched Aubrey Marcus's documentary at one point, Dark. I don't know if you've seen that. It's like his darkroom experience. Um, but that was the first time I heard of it. And I knew people like saw colors and stuff, but I didn't realize I didn't know that physical healing was a thing. And I also didn't know that the emergence of cities was the thing.
Yeah, that's how Joe Dispenza healed his spine in the dark, and that's how he developed that protocol. I know other people who have used it. There's a guy in Hawaii called Miracle King who went in a wheelchair. He fell off a balcony, broke his spine, went in a wheelchair, did Joe Dispenza's technique, and walked out 40 days later.
No shit. Wow. That's so interesting. I did not know Joe Dispenza, his darkroom was how he healed himself. He kind of keeps that a little bit quiet relative
Yeah,
to his
yeah,
meditations he's slinging.
yep.
Um, wow, that's so cool. And you know, you guys are innovating on this space. And so like I'd be curious to hear like kind of like a comparison of like, let's say 10 years ago somebody wanted to do this, what they had to what how they had to do it, and now what you're bringing forth with the cryo.
Yeah, so I I became fascinated with this after studying the Bun teachings and hearing it referenced in those teachings. And then I took the Bun darkroom teachings over COVID from a teacher in the Bay Area and blacked out a room in my house and tried it for a couple of days because I was so fascinated with it. And it was hugely impactful. And so I said, I want to bring this to a broader audience because I'm at the point in my journey in my career where really what I'm looking for is global impact on consciousness. And in going through it and coming to the conclusion that this was the single most powerful modality for unlocking and transforming consciousness, I went to a couple of the monastics that I knew, and I said, "What do you think about taking this to a broader audience? Because it's been hidden and protected for years. Like they wouldn't even give the teachings if you weren't an advanced student." And they all said the same thing. They said, "It's time. It's time to make this. The time to make this available." But the challenge with the darkroom experience traditionally is that you were facilitated by a monk on property who gave you the teachings mouth to ear through the door every day. And so you were necessarily limited by the number of monks and the number of rooms. And so, I'm a tech builder, I build scalable platforms. I'm like, that model does not scale. There's not enough monks and there's not enough rooms. And if you want to achieve global impact, you have to have people come, have the experience a change, go back to their community, have people notice that they've changed, get curious, ask them what they do, and then have them come in and have the same thing, rinse and repeat, so you create a flywheel. So I went to a bunch of friends that run dark retreats, and there's not that many. There's maybe 10 locations in the West for that you can go do this. Globally, there's maybe 40 or 50 rooms where you can go do it. And I asked these people who are running these retreat centers, I said, have you ever facilitated somebody on the phone in a different location? And they all said, yeah, no problem, works just fine. I was like, okay, there's the unlock. So if I can build the rooms and I can build a technology system that allows a monk in Siberia or Nepal to facilitate a retreat in Cambodia, Bali, Costa Rica, New York, Massachusetts, and Germany, then one monk can facilitate 50 people a week versus two if they have to be on site. And so, since I'm a tech builder historically and I've had some success with that, what we put together is a in-room audio-enabled, cloud-connected technology platform where we took sensors from the Israeli nursing home industry that are passive and hardwired into the room, so there's no Bluetooth and no Wi-Fi, and we monitor movement, temperature, heart rate variability, respiration, perspiration, a couple other things, so we know you're safe, right? So if you're the Israelis have developed algorithms so that they can see when anxiety is going up and you're escalating towards some sort of break event. So first and foremost, we can monitor people. The AI can monitor all their vitals, and we can make sure that they're safe, which was the first and foremost consideration. The second challenge when you're in the dark is that you receive lots of information because the mind is quieting. It opens the gateway to the higher dimensions, soul, higher aspect, and you start receiving communication and information that is quite profound. And for artists, it could be download on music or songs. For writers, it could be writing ideas. For regular folks, it could be an understanding of reality. And to capture those, you either have to carry a handheld recorder with all the buttons blacked out with tape and hope that you remember which button it is, you're pressing the right button, the batteries aren't dead, it's recording and saving what you want, and you're not leaving it on when you're done. Or you have to get out of bed, you have to feel your way through the room in the dark, find the desk, find your pen, find your notebook, try to remember where you were on the page in the dark, put your finger where you think the line is, remember what your download was, and start writing it in real time, which is a terrible experience for capturing your insights. So the second thing we built was an audio system where you say, "House, take a voice note," and you just start talking. And you just talk stream of consciousness. It captures it, it encrypts it, and transcribes it. It stores it in your folder, and then when you're done, you just go and you download. And you can say, "House, replay that voice note," to make sure that you got it and it was in there. So that's the second feature we built. And then the third feature we built is the remote facilitation. So we have we built basically the app store for facilitators and teachers. So you sign up for the retreat, you pick your location, your time, and then you pick your facilitator. And then you have a pre-consult with your facilitator where they help you prepare. And then while you're in the room, if you're going through something and you need help, you say, "House, I need to talk to Scott, schedule me an appointment." And the system knows when you're asleep and awake because we're monitoring all your vitals. And so it sends you a note. You get a note that says, "Hey, Ian's in his retreat. He needs to talk to you." It shows you my wake sleep schedule. You pick an hour that works for you and reserve it. And then at the appointed hour, it chimes me in the room. It goes, "Ding, Ian, Scott's ready to talk. Would you like to talk to him now?" I say yes. It initiates connection. We have our conversation. It records it, transcribes it, encrypts it, stores it, all HIPAA compliant. And if you're a Russian Orthodox monk in Siberia and only speak Russian, or if you're a Buddhist monk in Lomantang in Mustan and you only speak Nepali or Tibetan, it translates that conversation in real time for you. And we have a speaker system. We put 16 speakers in the room, on the walls, on the roof, and on the floor. And we use the motion tracking system to tell where you are in the room, and the speaker system direct the sound to where you are dynamically, so it always feels like your teacher's 1 foot away from you no matter where you are in the room. So it's a high fidelity teacher experience that feels like reality, even though your teacher could be 3,000 miles away in some monastery in the middle of nowhere. So that system, which we've got applied for patent protection for, also has a research layer. So there's a bunch of Raspberry Pi compute that is connected to a HIPAA compliant timestamp so that you can do research studies in the room and synchronize the data fields from all those different inputs and do data collection for analysis. And we've got a study we're baking with Harvard and IACS for launch that will be the first of its kind to document the physiological impact of being in the dark.
Wow. Yeah, that's what immediately where my mind went was like, has anybody studied this stuff? And it sounds like you guys are pioneering that.
No, this is Brian Johnson territory. It's never been studied and evaluated in a clinical way. And what we're The platform we're building will enable us to do those studies and replicate those at scale across the planet. And the goal is to build 2,000 rooms over the next 15 years. So it's a 40x increase in the number of rooms over the next 15 years, and have this modality available, ideally like a yoga studio. So you'd have in any town, you'd have the doctor's office, the yoga studio, and the dark room. And those three would be the three pillars of your wellness regimen.
Let's go. I'm here for that future. So, I imagine a lot of people hear about this and they're like, man, like, how do you pass the time? You know what I mean? Like that sounds like really tough. What would be your response to that objection or resistance?
I mean, sometimes it's boring. Like sometimes it's just boring, but that's part of the journey, right?
Mm,
Because when you're bored, you have to learn to be with yourself.
that's
And when
right.
you're not distracted with, happy thumbs and screens and whatever your distraction is, you're just with yourself. And then when you're just with yourself, your thoughts come up. And the thoughts are the roadmap to joy and freedom and happiness. So the thought comes up and you look at it and you say, where did that come from? How do I feel about that? What's behind that? And then 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 eventually you get down, the metaphor I use, it's like kelp growing on the ocean floor, right? The ocean is sort of our subconscious or our consciousness. And then the top of the ocean is where reality hits. And then the kelp are all the threads of our subconscious, and where they connect to the bedrock and the ocean floor. That's usually where your childhood trauma is, where all your stuff gets put together. And so as you notice the kelp floating on the top of the ocean, that's the thought. And then you follow it down with successive questions about what's beneath it. And eventually you get to the root within your subconscious of where it was initiated. And then you can decide to keep it if it serves you, or you can cut it loose and let the kelp strand flow away, or you can reprogram it so that instead of kelp, it turns into something else. And so that way you can proactively reconstruct your consciousness in a way that serves your highest purpose. But it can get boring. It can get, especially if you don't have a practice that you're engaged in. But that's part of it.
Right, right. One of the things that strikes me is psychedelics are such a dice roll. Like I've had a lot of incredible experiences, and then last year I had a destabilizing experience, my first one, and I kind of like was like, oh, I've done a lot of this, like I'm good, and then like I got my ass kicked, and I don't know if I'll ever do that again, to be honest. And I wonder, does that type of variability exist with dark rooms where people can, potentially get traumatized or experience something that's like beyond their window of tolerance?
Not beyond their window of tolerance. So the difference between the dark and psychedelics, psilocybin or ayahuasca or 5-MeO or whatever, DMT or whatever you're talking about, that's an uncontrolled experience. So you're unlocking chemistry in the brain, which blasts open the doorway to the inner worlds. Your awareness shoots up and out, and you have no control over where you go. Like if you have a good shaman with you who has a well-developed facility in the inner worlds, they can help sort of grab you and guide you. But set and setting is hugely important, and you ultimately, though, you can't control where you go because it's not a natural process. It's a catalyzed process through the use of these intermediaries. The dark is a natural process. So your body naturally and your spirit and your soul naturally don't give you more than you can handle. You may need guidance to contextualize it and understand it, but you don't receive things that are beyond your capability to manage and go through, because by definition, your soul and your spirit won't give you that, because that would be counterproductive. There's the whole point of incarnation is to have experience and learn and grow, and an experience that you can't handle and takes you out of your body by definition is antithetical to the whole point. So because it's a natural experience, and if you have the right facilitator supporting you, which we heavily screen and vet to have them on platform, then you might have a challenging experience, but you're not going to have like a psychotic break and a bad trip like you could potentially have in some of those other medicines.
I'm also, I mean, that's very attractive to me. I'm also very curious about the like integration of afterwards. Like, I think psychedelics are famous for being a window, right? And then you think you're like, oh, I'm God, like all this amazing stuff. Then like 2 days later, you're pissed at somebody running late. Um, and a lot of it wears off pretty quickly. It's similar with the dark room peak experiences? Is there a more stabilized kind of integration?
It's a longer tail for integration and it's more subtle. So, what many people report is when they're in there, they're like, well, that not much didn't happen. Like I didn't see, dragons eating rainbows or, talk to my dad, dead dad or grandfather, or what have you. But then when you talk to them a month, 3 months, 6 months later, and they start slowly, because it's a more natural process, what happens is the aperture opens up, you deal with stuff and work on it, and then you come back out and the aperture closes back down, and then your subconscious and your conscious will work to dribble those realizations and changes out slowly over time in a way that's manageable and you can integrate them and they're less disruptive and you can handle them and they're beneficial. So it's not like ayahuasca where like you go have this peak experience, you talk to Mama Guy, you come back, you quit your job, you leave your family, you get a van, you drive off to the Amazon and decide you're going to go be a shaman or something. That doesn't happen in the dark. In the dark, you have these more cogent and more controlled experiences that have a long tail for integration, and it unpacks more gently over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have I know there's certain like I know like for example like the Kogis, like they raise their children in the dark, and
Shaman children.
I'm sure there's other people that do that. Like I'm curious like what you've learned about the cultures that like make this like an intentional part of their culture.
Typically, they do it for the person in the community who has the role of being the connection to the gods or spirit or the other worlds. And the reason they do it with those children who are selected to fulfill that role is that when you, as a child, goes through their early development and the mind starts, initially, the mind is not very well formed. That's why you have this childlike innocence because, like, there's no story, it's just all pure perception and presence. And then over time, the mind starts to form and you get those ruts and grooves. And eventually, that aperture to the other worlds closes down as the mind starts to solidify because the purpose of the mind is to tell you that the spiritual worlds aren't real and you're crazy. That's its function. And so by keeping kids in the dark until the mind is developed, they can maintain that connection to the inner world and it stabilizes it so that when they come out and they rejoin the community as part of everyday life, they keep that connection to the inner worlds and they can play that functional role within society of the shaman or what have you, who's the connection to the spirit worlds and guide the community through, you know, whatever it is, whatever crops or disputes or whatever it is, as that's part of it. So there's a very rational reason for why they do it, but it's generally only for those children who are designated either by birth or by whatever their selection process is to fulfill that role.
Man, so fascinating. And is the meditative experience that you have inside of a dark room like is there like a more heightened level of perception or awareness relative to like, just doing a drop in your house?
Yeah, I mean, if you get up at 6 in the morning and go try to sit for 20 minutes before you gotta, before the kids get up and you gotta get them, pack them lunch and take them off to school and go to the gym and everything else, you're thinking, okay, like, what do I got to do with the rest of my day? Oh, like, is my wife mad because I didn't take the garbage out yesterday? Oh, I got that parent teacher conference later, or I got the investor call. Like, there's just all that goes on that distracts from quieting the inner discussion. And in the dark, all that goes away because you don't have any of that stimulus. So you're only left with your breath and your thoughts. And in that environment, absent those distractions, after a couple of days for the muddy water to settle out and get clear, it makes your meditations much more powerful, much more profound, much more transformative. And whereas you might be able to make, X amount of progress in any given day out in a householder life, in the dark, you might make 10 or 15 or 100X progress because you're so much more focused and potent with your practice.
What do you think it's going to take for this to go more mainstream?
I mean, I think it's already going mainstream. You've got Sky Caves up in Oregon has a 3-year wait list. Aubrey Marcus is doing it. athletes are doing it, big celebrities and business people are doing it. I think it's a question of awareness and access, and people learning about it. And so when we launch the rooms, start doing a podcast where we interview people pre and post and tell their stories, and we'll also interview the monks who are the tradition keepers of these practices, and we'll start to spread good information and broader awareness and also broader accessibility, right? Because right now, if you want to go do it, it takes a long time to be able to even have the opportunity. So expanded awareness of the practice, awareness of best practices and safety, better access, more facilitators, and I think that will start bringing this to a much more mainstream audience.
And this is a dumb practical question, but it's coming up for me. Like, how does the food situation work? Do people do this fasted? Are they eating? Like, is there like some special contraption that someone slides it under without any light coming in?
Well, the interesting thing about being in the dark is your appetite falls off a cliff because you're literally mostly you're just either in bed or meditating, sitting in a chair or whatever. Some people do a little yoga, but like I'm a 3 meals a day guy: steak and eggs for breakfast, a bunch of protein, a little veg for lunch, a bunch of protein and veg for dinner, and popcorn with my kid if I'm watching a movie afterwards. In the dark, after sort of day two, I have two hard boiled eggs and an apple for breakfast, a little fruit and some nuts in the mid afternoon, a cup of tea, and maybe a chicken breast and some veggies, or half a chicken breast and some veggies for dinner. Like you just don't want to eat because your
Interesting.
metabolic rate gets collapsed. So you can eat whatever you want. You can eat the temple food that we prescribe based on these monastic traditions and based on local ingredients. There's a whole tonic and supplement menu. So if you want to do a flush or a clean or a fast, you can do that. Doing any sort of recreational drugs or plant medicine in the dark is not suggested. We highly discourage that. But there's a special door. It's a double-sided door. So there's the outside door, there's an inner door, a middle door, and then the inner door. And so the food is delivered to the outside door and closed, and then from the inside you open it and open the middle door and bring it in, and so it maintains the dark, and then you just get it delivered. And then we have built a special section inside the room with recessed cup holders and silverware holders and whatnot. And so you sit there and you eat it, and then you push it back through the window, and then you get the next one when it comes.
Wow. So freaking cool. So I imagine there's some people listening to this being like, all right, this sounds pretty dope. I want to do it. I want to do it a cryo style with the speaker setup and the biomarker monitoring and, monks on demand. Like, what is the current status of a cryo and these type of particular experiences that you're creating?
Well, we've been in development on a number of sites for the last 18 months. So we'll open the doors at our first location in Costa Rica. It's in the Diamante Valley, which is the other side of the hill from Uvita, at a place called Holos. And those rooms will come online in August. We'll open the reservation book at the beginning of May. And then we're building 2 rooms in Upper Mustang with the Tibetan Buddhists in Nepal. Those will come online in the third quarter, and then 2 rooms with the Bon Monastery in Nepal. Those will come online in the first quarter of 27. And then 2 rooms in Bali in partnership with the Yoga Barn in Ubud. Those first 2 rooms will come online in July of 27. And then we have locations in Cambodia, Germany, Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, New York, in the Hudson Valley, California, Austin, that'll come online in sort of the back half of 27 and beyond. So we'll open the reservation book on our website beginning of May, which is acraya.global. And then you can book your reservation, book your teacher, book your location, and then we will add locations as they become. Generally, what we'll do is we'll add a location and open it for reservations 6 months before the rooms are going to open up, and then that'll give people a chance to book and plan travel.
That's epic. Who are you partnering with in Austin to build one?
We've got a couple of different sites that we're evaluating and partners we're evaluating right now. We haven't locked into any one yet, but we're going through the vetting process right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, count me interested. And just love what you're doing, man. It's really epic. And obviously there's when these open up, people can book, but how else can people support you with this?
Um, well, if someone wants to participate financially, there is an investment opportunity if they want to buy equity in the company so that they can get exposure to the global portfolio. So the goal is to build 2,000 rooms around the globe over the next 10 or 15 years, and that would enable our guests to sort of go to Costa Rica and have that protocol and visit and there and have that local experience, and then go to Bali and have that local experience, and then go to Nepal and have that local experience.
Mm,
So it's designed for sort of conscious adventurers and travelers.
very
And
cool.
eventually, I think it evolves into sort of like the Amman resorts for conscious travelers, where you have these communities, these luxury high end communities that are dedicated to deep consciousness practices that you can sort of go around the globe and experience different cultures.
That's epic. Sounds way better than an all inclusive in Cancun, if you ask me.
As long as you don't have kids with you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was another thing that I was thinking in my head. I was like, man, I got a budget when I can sneak away for a week or something. But it seems like it's totally worth it.
It's worth it. And it's good for teenagers. We're actually going to
Interesting.
launch 2 rooms in San Diego at the Youth Homeless Center to and put youth homeless kids through the darkroom experience and train them to facilitate other teenagers of going through this modality, because it's very powerful for teens who think they have ADHD or cell phone addiction or whatever. And so we'll enable these homeless kids to go around the world at different locations and facilitate teenagers from those local geographies of having the darkroom experience. It's going to be really cool.
Wow.
Can't wait to launch it.
That's epic, man. Well, Ian, this has been awesome. Acria Global is the website. If people want to follow you or stay in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just over the website's the best place to find me. I'm on X also. I'll put all the details in the show notes and people can track it down there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ian. Keep up the amazing work, and
Yeah, brother.
everyone listening, go check out a darkroom retreat.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today.